Have you ever stayed a place too long? I mean, like too long, and you should have left a long, long time ago. Well, in our story today, we're going to look at how Moses stayed and the people of Israel stayed too long. Really, they just too long. And it's in Exodus chapter 2, and it's a great story of the challenge. They were supposed to stay just long enough during Joseph's life to survive a famine. Because remember, if you go way back in the story, Joseph was the guy who went to Egypt as a slave, ended up becoming the second man in charge, ended up revealing himself to his brothers, and then he took all 70 of those people who had wronged him, by the way, and brought them to Egypt to save them from a famine. And the famine was going to only last 7 years. Now, the brothers came 2 years into the famine, so there were only 5 years left in this famine. Well, if I can speed on through the story, the problem was they stayed longer than that. Everybody got comfortable. 70 guys came over on the first run, and then they had children, and before you know it, they've got generations who've been in Egypt, and they're used to it. They've got good jobs. They learn how to be, how to fit into society. They're living the good life. Who wants to go to the promised land with tents? That's where they're supposed to go. Well, they stayed so long that what happened, at some point, the king of Egypt died. That's where we pick up the story. Exodus 2:23. Now, it happened in the process of time that the king of Egypt died. The guy who knew them, the guy who knew Joseph, he died. And the children of Israel groaned because of the bondage. And they cried out, and their cry came up to God because of the bondage. And so God heard their groanings, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham and Isaac and with Jacob. And God looked upon the children of Israel, and God acknowledged them. All of a sudden, now, the world has changed. They're now in a place where nobody knows them. They're in a place now where everything is totally different, and now they must adapt again. But it's all rooted in the fact that they stayed too long. The guy that they knew died. Sometimes you stay in a place because it's secure, a job, a career, a town, because you feel secure. Problem is, you should have been gone. This is not going to work. This is not the best direction for you. And you don't want to think about that. You want to run from that. Maybe it's time for you to think about that again. They stayed in Egypt and ended up in bondage. You read the whole second chapter, you'll see the context of it. It's a phenomenal story in Exodus. I believe that one of the great challenges for all of us is moving on. We're facing it now. A new virus, a new season, a new challenge, new things for churches, new things for pastors. And we don't want to move on. We want to stay in some place that we think is safe. But now, maybe it's time for you to rethink all of that. Maybe the way you have relived your life, the career you've been in, the way you've worked, the way you've taken care of your body, it's time to change. Underlying issues could be a real problem for you in this season. And so maybe you should pause. Maybe it's that season when everything needs a new look, a fresh look. I feel that way. Maybe it's time for you to think that way. Okay, Pastor Rick, are you saying that God put them in bondage? No, their choices put them in bondage because they stayed too long. They stayed too long. There are people who are in abusive relationships. They did wrong. They stayed too long. It was one beating too many. It's one gun to the head too many. One knife cut too many. At some point, you stay too long. At some point, you have gone too far. You cuss out the boss one time too many. I don't know where your too long is. I don't know what you're doing too long. You've been in this behavior too long. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's time for you, maybe it's time for all of us to take a step back and look and say, how long have I been doing this? How long have I been here? How long have I ignored the truth? How long has this been? It's so easy to just sit there like the frog, they say, in the little hot water, and allow yourself to just boil because you won't face the fact. You won't hop out of the water. You just kind of slowly, you've gotten used to the temperature, and you don't even notice it's getting hotter. You don't notice it's getting louder. Fights are getting more often. Maybe it's time to pause. Push the pause button and rethink this. Let me pray for you. Father, give them grace to make right decisions, to make tough decisions, and I give you all the honor and praise for them. In your name, amen. Hey, thanks for being with me today, these few minutes. Think about what you're doing too long. Maybe time to change. And by the way, as I close, get the app. Remember, I always tell you that. The app is cool. You can replay this. You can watch stuff over and over again, hear sermons, all kind of good stuff. I'll see you next time. My name is Ricky Temple. I hope I sharpened you a little bit. See you next time. Bye-bye.